Welcome to the Psyched to Practice podcast, your one stop for practical and useful clinical information, masterful insight from experts in the field, and a guide to daily living. Ray and I are back, and we're talking about something a little different for today. We're going in depth on the Kendrick Lamar halftime show for the most recent Super Bowl, in part because it's in the zeitgeist right now, but also, some of the messages and themes just felt so important that we wanted to share a bit of our take, looking at some of the, maybe the overarching unifying themes, as well as hearing what your thoughts are on this.
Yeah, I think this was an interesting halftime show, and it definitely, if it accomplished one thing, it accomplished conversation. People were talking about it, which I think is great. And it's interesting. So I've been a Kendrick Lamar fan for a while musically. Now the interesting part, now I'm going to get a little slack for this, wasn't my favorite musical performance. So my initial kind of watch was, I've seen him perform better music, but from an artistic standpoint, I don't know that anybody could have nailed it better.
Between the visuals, the symbolism, choreography, the lighting, all of the effects, it was just, it all came together so well. And I think that's a part of why so many people are talking about it, is because there's so much depth to it. And the perspective taking, it gives individuals a sense that there's a lot that's open to interpretation. Other pieces, not so much. But, even down to kind of how it starts, having Samuel Jackson as Uncle Sam, coming up and talking directly to the audience, welcoming them to the, the Great American Game. And, from there, Kendrick kind of takes us on this journey with Samuel L. Jackson's narration at various points in time, but so many different themes that are coming up in that.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. I think that's what's, I don't know. I think good art evokes different emotions. And I mean, I have heard some really nasty things that people have been posting about it. And I've also heard a lot of celebration about it. I think that's what he wanted. I mean, I think that's the whole idea. Let's create this conversation. And, the symbolism, I mean, gosh, I don't even know where to begin. There's just so many pieces, I guess you mentioned, Samuel L. Jackson kind of starting with this idea of the, Great American Game. And maybe let's start with that because, I noticed pretty quick the game controller, that was that was interesting. I've heard a whole bunch of different reasons on that, but for me, I actually thought it was in reference to the Squid Games. Now I think I've been debunked by some other people out there, but for those that have watched the Squid Games, it's about injustice. It's about this government control, this whole piece, and whether that was his intent or not, the rest of the content, it kind of fit within that theme, right?
It certainly did. And the patriotic theme, but also, referencing gang culture between, the Bloods and the Crips, and iconic moments from, him on the car to the divided American flag, the panning, the wrong way with just, everyone's kind of going in these different directions. It's just incredible. And there's so many different elements to it. And, actually one of the things I'll post a link to it in the episode description, but there's a few different video breakdowns that, in preparation for this episode, I was looking through, but there was one I really like. So I'll make sure to give credit for that creator there. But, it's sparking conversations. And I guess one of the bigger themes that I really wanted to call out, that I do think it's a unifying theme, and just about every video or every article that I saw about it is talking about it. It's creating conversation. It's meant to be debated. And in some ways, the way that he tells this story, he doesn't give enough context for there to be one definitive answer. And, I think, truly only Kendrick and, maybe the choreographers know what they intended. But in some ways, I have to imagine they intended for it to be open-ended and open to interpretation. And I think he nailed it.
Yeah, I agree. I've heard so many people kind of go against one political party or for another, or whatever, and I kind of interpreted it different. I didn't see that the message was that it was to blame one party or not. I think he was talking about an American problem. He was talking about us as a country, as a society, and that it really wasn't about trying to blame somebody, but it was really this reflection of, and I think all of the symbolism through it was highlighting different problems that we have as a country, like the flag, which was brilliant. And honestly, I don't know much about dance. It was good. Like, I mean, the choreography was just, it was well done. But the flag, the idea of the divided flag, and he's in the middle of it. But then that same flag at times started breaking off. Like there's a group that's just all the white parts of the flag and all the red parts of the flag, and how they were positioned, which for me was like, gosh, we are this segregated situation. And it was just masterful. I mean, I think like that idea, that's not a problem just with a political party. This is representing, I guess, as a whole, we need to do a better job.
And I think that's the theme of, in some ways, because it's meant to be interpreted, it's starting divided. And I think almost in its starting divided, it has a unifying quality rather than there being, only a singular point that then divides us. And so it's not a knife's edge that we fall on one side or the other, but rather it's a puzzle that everyone's kind of has their piece of it and it's coming together.
Yeah.
A singular image.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, and gosh, again, there's so many details, like, just even like, and some of these I have to admit, like I missed them during the initial show. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to watch it again. I'm just curious. Then I'm like, oh my gosh, there's this detail and that detail. But, just something as simple as, in the one part behind the dancers and Kendrick Lamar, in the audience, there's this light up of, this warning wrong way kind of sign. What a detail. Like it was like when you kind of go like, oh, wow, that, such a good kind of call out. I don't know that that's all that abstract. I think that's a pretty in your face, like, hey folks, we're really on the wrong path here. But I thought it was brilliantly done.
And some of the guest appearances between, SZA with Mustard, with Serena Williams. And, I want to talk about some of those individuals, but really, I just keep coming back to Samuel L. Jackson, who in so many roles, even prior to his acting career, I believe came into light with a lot of the Black Power movement. Yeah. And then in his his career, he has played unapologetic, outspoken Black man. And then in here, whitewashed, and he's telling Kendrick, it's too ghetto.
Right.
And, when Kendrick's playing a bit more of like, the music that's popularized, telling him good job. And then also, calling out warnings surrounding Drake. And like, so it's kind of this representation of lost identity. And I think, again, another theme is the uniqueness. And I believe the video that I was watching, every individual who was wearing the red, white, and blue of the flag had a different outfit on. Like, it wasn't all a unified outfit. It was everyone was an individual. However, they were a part of this, collective with the flag. And then again, the scattering, but that was such a cool element that, there's not this unifying costume, but it's this expression that each individual gets to bring into that and is a part of this, which is really, I think, again, that call to America.
Yeah. And it's going back to Samuel Jackson. I think, those comments that he had, the other part I again, kind of the way I looked at it was, he's saying these things like, the cultural cheat code and those types of things. But if you listen to Kendrick Lamar's lyrics and even things that I don't think were really song lyrics, but things that he added in there, there's this dilemma, but also then this strength to push back from that dilemma and to still send the message so that dialogue, even like I think it was when he first kind of was hinting to the Not Like Us song, like they don't want me to play it kind of deal. But it was like just that little tension of this. Yeah, I have to make decisions on do I go with what I believe and my convictions, or do I sell out? Like that kind of And I felt that at a number of times through that performance, which again, I mean, what an interesting way artistically to kind of show that dilemma and the idea that, we're always at these decision points. And it was brilliant. Yeah.
I guess speaking to that, like that, do we sell out or do we embrace, the uniqueness and what, uniqueness as a person, uniqueness culturally? And, Serena Williams doing the Crip Walk, like I think was such an impactful piece. And, yes, there's that connection to Drake, but also kind of calling back to Emil Jackson saying too ghetto when she won the Olympics and then was crip walking and then, criticized for that's not how you act. And what a way to come back and have that female empowerment, a Black female athlete that just you have to respect, she's phenomenal. And, just a display of embracing that uniqueness rather than saying, I'm going to fold to what's expected in some sense.
Yeah. I think that was probably the biggest surprise kind of cameo that came in there. I actually I'm like, wow, she looks like Serena Williams. Like that was kind of my first, and I'm like, oh wait, no, I think that actually is. And then I had to kind of take a double take, but yeah, I think I think you couldn't have picked a better person to put in that role. I mean, I think for a couple of reasons. I mean, one is, the idea that, she does this dance that as a young athlete, she criticized that's, I think, just one piece of it. But I think for me as a dad of daughters, I appreciated throughout that performance the idea of empowering women. And I made a comment. I said, there was not anything that was trying to objectify women. It was really about kind of this idea of showing the strength of women. And then when Serena Williams came out, how could you pick a better person? Yeah. So someone who dominated her field and entered a sport that was fairly white-dominated sport and became just this icon in that sport. Like there were so many layers to her performance, and I get that the Drake piece of it was probably a little dig as well that he tried to get in there, but it meant so much more than that. Like I mean, I think that was. I said something the other day, the Drake thing and them saying A minor, like. That was the entertainment part for me. Like it was like, because I wanted to see him kind of if he was going to do it. But I hope that's not the only piece that people took out of it was this battle between Drake, because it shouldn't be reduced to that moment. Like it was a powerful moment, but it was just so much more than that. It wasn't about that beef. I mean, and Serena Williams being there for me meant more than her relationship with Drake. And that's what I hope people kind of got from it. Because that for me was like, again, having two daughters, to see somebody in that role, it was just, I thought, a powerful moment.
And talking about the not like us moment in it, like it really, I think, connects with, I want to say it's his opening quote.
The revolution is about to be televised. Pick the right time, but the wrong guy.
That's the quote. And in some ways, and I don't hear it as a call to arms, so to speak. It's not, right. I don't hear that it's meant to be a violent revolution, but rather just standing up against certain powers that do feel oppressive. And, when he's talking about Drake's lawyers and, the lawsuit and him doing it anyway, him standing up and kind of, sharing one of his most popular songs, but at the same point in time, going against what he's being told he's able to do and not doing it, in this, again, not in a violent way, but in a way that speaks and connects to this larger message.
I think that's the frustration I've had in the back that I've heard from some people, is that this idea that the terms that were used, like revolution, that somehow equates to a violent response. And, I had said to a friend of mine who's been pretty cool about it, I said, we have to remember, like, there were protests in a way that were very peaceful. And I said, the idea of some of the terms, again, I think he was pretty purposeful in using those terms. I mean, I think that there was he wanted to evoke emotion. But again, I think the people that have responded that way, I think they're missing the greater message, because it wasn't presented in that way at all. I mean, it was much more, even the symbolism, like there wasn't violent symbolism in It was much more about the idea of seeing division, seeing people segregated in certain ways. The idea that the dance stage at one point was to represent a prison yard, to talk about our issues with incarceration and how that affects groups that are marginalized, that there is an overrepresentation in those facilities. That's just calling out that we need better. And I guess that was my message throughout, it was a call for us to do better. We deserve to do more as a country for each other. And I think that was my takeaway, I guess.
Maybe as we start pulling back here, I want to share like a sentiment that talks about his final message was one of advocating for Americans to unplug from corporate media and getting together to organize against those powers. And like, it's not a violent one, but it's one, let's not allow ourselves to be controlled or puppeteered in a way.
Yeah, I didn't read that, but I don't know that I could have summarized it any better than that. It's a great way to I think to kind of wrap it all together. And I think we could probably talk for an hour. I mean, I have my whole sheet of notes that we haven't addressed, and I know we wanted to make this kind of just a small bonus content, but I hope as you listen to this, you think about those moments from the performance that meant something to you. For me, again, I had a number of takeaways that I appreciated, and I hope you find those as well.
With that, we hope you enjoy this little extra bonus piece of content. We'll be back and we'll maintain our typical schedule, but we just wanted to drop something in the feed to really call this out because it felt important and wanting to share this message. Check in next week for our next episode dropping. But until then, be well, stay psyched.